Ladies and gentlemen, so excited. Episode number 4, Center for Native American Youth at the Aspen Institute. Right here, ladies and gentlemen, I am so excited to have these beautiful guests joining me today. I'm Chance Rush, I'm your moderator. I want to, obviously, Center for Native American Youth, our Tele-Native, in efforts during this pandemic with COVID-19. A lot of our young people have been discombobulated, and some aren't doing the things that they wanted to do, and plans that they've made all have been canceled or delayed, whatever it may be. So Center for Native American Youth wanted to do our Tele-Native. Our first session was on mental health. Our past 2 sessions were on medicine. Movement is medicine. And today we are just so delighted for our panel today. So with that being said, good afternoon and happy Pride Month. This month and always we celebrate the meaningful contributions of our LGBTQ and Two-Spirit relatives. It was 50 years ago in New York City where the first Pride Parade was held. Today, and as every single day, we celebrate many contributions of our relatives. For some ground settings, I want to share that prior to colonization, culturally, LGBTQ and Two-Spirit relatives were held with high regard. Creator chose these relatives to as individuals for guidance, for spiritual connection. Members of the community were all well aware of the sacred identity and often looked to these relatives for spiritual and cultural guidance. That being said, I am so honored to share this space with Tyson, Somáh, Nate, and Sherenté. Welcome to the Center for Native American Youth Tele-Native Youth Webinar. And at this time, I would like everyone to introduce themselves, starting with Tyson, and then we'll go down the list.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. I'm so happy to be here. My name is Tyson Johnston. I'm the Vice President at the Quinault Indian Nation. We're on the northwest coast of Washington State. I've had the honor to serve in this role this past 6 years, and I've served in leadership for the past 10. This is really exciting that we're deciding to take up space and acknowledge all the contributions Indigenous folks make to not only the LGBT community, but also our critical role in Indian country. But I'm so thankful to be here, and I'm excited to be here with my panelists and friends.
Go ahead, Sherenté.
Asqui Kwasanamas Nitampawag, Natasui Sherenté Mishitashin Harris. Hi, my friends. My name is Sherenté, and I am Narragansett Niantic. I live in Charlestown, Rhode Island. I'm 20 years old, and I am Two-Spirit.
All right, going down the list. Go ahead, Nate.
Nate Lemuel Inshle, Toda Chitni Nishle, Kithla Chitni A Bashishchin, Hashkad Zoa A Deshache, Tat Chitni A Deshanella. Hello, my name is Nate Lemuel. I am of the Bitterwater clan. I am born of the Red House People clan. Yucca, fruit strung out in a line clan are my maternal grandfathers. Red running into the Water People clan are my paternal grandmothers. I am from Shiprock, New Mexico, where I grew up. I am a visual enthusiast and a photographer. I've been doing my art for about 10 years. And right now I'm here in New Mexico, and it's great to be here.
All right, thank you, Nate. And Somáh, go ahead.
My name is Somáh, coming at you from occupied Tiwa territory. I'm the daughter of Deborah Haaland, the granddaughter of Mary Toya. We are Turquoise clan, and we are from Laguna, Pueblo, here in New Mexico. I'm also part Jemez. And yeah, I'm just a queer, indigiqueer here to serve knowledge.
Well, I'm so grateful that you guys are all here and with us. And, without holding up any of the time that you guys have, I do want to say quickly how proud of each one of you are as just young, bright activists, young, bright individuals. And, you and all your professions, what you guys got going on, it truly is an honor to see the journey, in each one of you just over the years. So I'm really grateful for that. And I want to thank the Center for Native American Youth and the Aspen Institute for giving me the opportunity to serve as a moderator. Chance Rush, Hidatsa Dakota, Arapaho, make my home in beautiful Tulsa, Oklahoma with my wife, Tyler English Rush, and just being a dad and, playing my part and making a difference. And, I know that there's so much going on in the world today, a lot of setbacks, a lot of frustrations, but there's also a lot of promise. And I want you guys to keep being on the front line and continue to make a difference. First question I have today is for our panelist, Tyson. Again, just so proud of you, Tyson. I remember you when I first came up to Hola, came up to Quinault, and you came to our youth conference. And now to see the person you are today, I really am grateful and thankful to know you, Tyson. And I know that your family always has my back every time I come up there. So I want to get this thing started. Can you share your journey into tribal leadership and how your identity has supported this journey?
Of course. I think a lot about where I'm at and how I got to the position I'm in today. And I think, everyone that's participating in this work on this panel right now and those that are listening in, we're really, those coming generations that have been foretold and, talked about. And a lot of us are the beneficiaries and stand on the backs of giants and people that have sacrificed and, made huge moves within Indian country coming out of colonization and allowing us to continue to thrive again and rebuild our nations. And so I've had the honor of, having my tribal leadership invest in me, making sure that, we're attending youth conferences, we're being exposed to colleges and universities, and we're also, making sure that we're getting ready to sustain ourselves by passing the mic to new tribal leadership. We've always been really good about that here. The nation that I come from is really matrilineal in nature, and so I grew up with looking up to many, just amazing, women in my life and in my family that served in leadership before I did. And so it's really their teachings and their guidance and the work that they did that really inspired me to continue that in my family and for my community. There's a lot of things that we need to do still to continue to become more whole and work on that ability to thrive again, as tribal nations kind of rise up and come into their power. And so for me, as I kind of look at the fingerprint that I want to leave behind on the work that I've done, is really making sure that, our trans and LGB and two-spirited folks are really at the forefront and included into everything that tribes are doing. Our inclusion and acceptance is an essential component of tribal sovereignty. We look at tribal sovereignty through a limited lens, but until all of our people are at the table and, we are welcoming people back in versus pushing them out, we're never going to be a whole community or a whole as Indian country. And so that's what I really feel like, I'm doing. And I've had the honor of really crossing paths with many of our queer and two-spirited folks that are coming into leadership, all over, this country and beyond. And so I think a lot of that is just a natural returning to our roles. We were always in roles of leadership. We were always ambassadors. We were always wisdom keepers. We carried a lot of that. And so I'm trying to manifest that as best as I can and honor my journey and also just, honor my family and the blood that I carry within me. If you could be that one person that, you yearned for when you were young, you should do that. And if you're making that world just a little bit easier for someone that's like you or similar to you or struggling, we're going to be better for it. We can't afford to lose even one of us. All of us are special and precious. And so I try to think about that and think about the chairs that should be filled at my meetings or the spaces that I'm in and try to carry those folks that have been taken from us too soon with me all the time.
Mm-hmm. And your You're so right on the money, you know, in whatever topic it's about. It doesn't matter, you know, fighting addictions, mental health, fitness, you know, the past two panels that we talked about, you know, we have to come together no matter what, you know, and you are absolutely right, you know, so thank you for sharing that. And I'll come back to you here in a moment. Somáh, in your journey and leaning into your identity, who's been your biggest supporter? And share a story about this supporter.
Okay. I have been incredibly blessed that I actually have a lot of supporters in my life. I never take for granted how privileged I am to have always had space to be myself growing up. My parents have always been very supportive of me and always accepted me for exactly who I was, even, you know, that like weird middle school phase that we won't talk about. But probably one of my biggest supporters that I would name would be my good friend Rhiannon. We went to college together. I also went to school for theater, so I was surrounded by some eccentric folks all the time. But I think that this friend in particular gives me space to, like, I think that it's so important as queer people and as people in general that we're given the space and option to like change our mind. I know at least me personally, like when I was 18, I like heavily identified as a lesbian, and that label was like super important to me. But the older I get, the more I'm discovering myself, the more my labels are becoming more fluid and changing. And I just remember every time I feel like I need to get something off my chest, that's the person I reach out to. We also work with children together, and Rhiannon has very much supported me in like being myself around kids, which can be scary sometimes, but having coworkers and people in your space that you know have your back is really awesome. So I really appreciate them and their ability to hold space for me and empower me to live in my identity truthfully, even if it's changing from day to day.
Yeah. Well, cool, man. Hope we get to meet Brennan one day. That'd be kind of cool, you know. Well, thank you for your words. Thank you for sharing that. We'll come back to you here in a moment. And, you know, we're just really proud of you, proud of your mom and what your family does, you know, does for all of us, you know, and very, very grateful and thankful. I remember I used to run with some buddies up in Laguna, and, you know, your parents' name came up often, you know, and it's just so powerful how, you know, they said that this world is small, you know, but they say Indian country is small, but it's like when you want to do great things, Indian country is even smaller, you know, because you come through a lot of the really bright and great people. Saying that, you know, speaking of Indian country is small, I remember I did a camp a few months ago, and I had the privilege of having Sherenté at the camp. Siblings were both there as well. How you doing, Sherenté?
Doing great.
Man, how did I do it? How was my training? Was I boring?
No, it was incredible. I mean, I think it was such an incredible opportunity for our tribal youth to get together. And I mean, the work that you did really, I think, strengthened our bonds as a community, as youth. And I mean, that's so important in this day and age. For time immemorial, our youth have moved us forward, have been the ones that shake things up because they're born into a world that they did not create. And so I really think that time gave us the motivation and inspiration to realize how tangible our own fates are in the world around us, and the power we have as a collective to awaken and change.
Wow. You know, and it was so funny because when I got there and I was talking to Quinault it's like you were the one that was famous, you know, and they were talking about Vogue, and they were talking about either you're about to do Vogue or you just did the Teen Vogue. And I was just like, man, really? Sherenté? Wow, you know, and the reason why I say that is because you really stood out. You know, you really stood up and you stood out for, you know, just always, you know, being there, being influential at this training. In saying that, I remember that, you know, you quoted in Vogue at one time. It said, within my life as Indigenous, two-spirited youth, the most controversial act I ever committed was being myself. Can you elaborate on that? And also on top of that, kind of share with us why it's important to be yourself.
Absolutely. I'm reminded right here, Somáh's words really rang true. I'm with my Nokomis, my grandmother right now, and as matriarchal people, our grandmothers are such big parts of our life. And I have been blessed that I have two strong Narragansett grandmothers, one of which passed on last summer. But during my time coming out, it is a blessing to immediately be affirmed for who you are. And so the fact that my grandmother was able to tell me, you're two-spirit, when I came out, was incredible, because I feel a lot of young people don't have that kind of, they might have support from their families, but that inherent understanding. And we are living in an increasingly colonial world. So right now I'm at Brown and RISD as a dual degree student. And I'm in my third year, and most of my work, whether it's my writing or my artwork, has been centered towards decolonization. Our people have been taught not to listen to the own sound of our hearts beating. We have been taught not to recognize what is so inherent to ourselves. And we must awaken from that. And it's our two-spirit people that do just that. We exist in this in-between place. And many people that are not Indigenous will get confused and won't understand how, when I came out as gay, my grandmother told me I was two-spirit, because doesn't two-spirit mean you're connected to both being a man and a woman? So isn't that more like transgender? But inherently, conceptually, being two-spirit blurs all of those lines, and it doesn't matter what you are two-spirit, you're sacred, you exist in that in-between place. So going out into my tribal community and having to face, unfortunately, the product of 300 plus years of colonization and forced assimilation, there was a lot of awakening that needed to happen, and it all really began with dance. So my dance journey as a fancy shawl dancer really shook people. And when I started out, I felt invisible and naked, and as if I didn't have a community of support. But as I continued and persevered, eventually there were protests that happened where people realized that me being kicked out of the circle was wrong. And my own peers that I was dancing with in the circle, my sisters, they supported me wholeheartedly. And it was really a select few who were caught within the sadness of our history of oppression that tried to hold us back. As Indigenous people, we have continually evolved and grown as the world around us has changed, and that is how we have stayed alive. I think it really comes down to just reminding people of who we are. Because many Indigenous people will say, oh, well, our people didn't have two spirits. That's just something out west. Well, no, that's not true. I mean, we know from our oral histories that's not true, but even if you look at primary source documents, if you look at Baron de la Hontan, he talks about what he calls the hermaphrodites, and he talks about the hunting women who don't take husbands, and how these people were accepted, these East Coast tribal people, that two spirits were respected within their communities and were supported. And I have peace in my heart that I know who I am, and I know how to refer to myself in my language, no wa'ashpa, he who is effeminate. So I think as we move forward, this time during the coronavirus has really allowed people to go into their deepest parts. And time, in many ways, has kind of stopped, and we've been brought back to a sort of dream time. And during this sacred time, we must remember that amidst all of our differences, that we are all interconnected, and what a beautiful thing that is, the great spectrum of difference that we create. And it's Nashawi, the in-between, that is that holy place where we walk.
Right, right. Good, man. Good insight. Awesome grandmas. You know, I thought I met one of them up there. I thought, well, thank you for those words. Hey, Nate, going on over to you. HBO, wow, what a huge platform. Congratulations on that. I have not got to see the series, We're Here. I want to know what that is about, and how does it make you feel to be able to provide positive and accurate Indigenous LGBTQ and two-spirited representation on that huge platform? Nate?
Well, first of all, I want to apologize. At first, I didn't tell everyone who I identify as. I identify as a queer gay man. We're Here. How that happened? Well, I was involved deeply in the Indigenous music scene here on the Navajo Nation, and I went to the Indigenous punk shows and the electronic experimental, and I got so inspired that I used music as really a medium to create what I call visual enthusiasm, which is just mixed media from photos to video to slideshows. And it started to grow, and I got recognized through the producers on Instagram, and they approached me on there, and I did a Skype call a few times back and forth, and getting filled in on what We're Here is. It's basically it's a 6-part unscripted series, and in each episode there's 3 drag queens, Eureka O'Hara, Shangela Laquifa Wadley, and Bob the Drag Queen, who is my drag mother. They come into small towns across America, and these towns are surrounded by so much already, from homophobia to transphobia to just racism. And they picked Farmington, and the thing about it was I'm not from Farmington. I mean, I go there to get stuff, but like Farmington is right next to Shiprock, which is border town from the reservation here on the Navajo Nation. And I thought it would be interesting to include not just myself, but I pushed to include my friends who are Lady Shug, who identifies as non-binary, who's been in the drag scene for so many years, and my best friend Darren Tom, who is a designer who is from Gallup, and we got together and we spoke. And the show, what we wanted from the show was how can we represent ourselves, and how can we make this in a way to represent ourselves, to support, and to use this platform to have other people understand who we are as the Indigenous LGBTQ two-spirits. And I told my story on there, and there was so much that I wanted to tell about how I grew up, being in the closet, growing up in a Christian home. Sorry, I'm getting a little emotional. It was really hard growing up, and I wanted to let other people in my community, as well as in my, out there, that it can be very hard, but I felt like there are so many sides to myself that I wanted to express as an individual, as to what I identified with. And I always felt like I was androgynous when I was growing up. I've always been a nice person growing up, and it's hard for me to explain myself when you have the football team picking on you, or you have a group of small friends picking on you. So I grew up trying to be nice to everybody, and moving on from that point of being in school, I wanted to figure out how I can help my community, even though at one point I feel like there needed to be some form of acceptance, and with what I'm not dealing with, but with some of my friends who were trying to create a better space in our community. So expressing myself in that way through the show, I wanted to create a performance and kind of talk about my life, how it was affected a few years ago when I got into an accident. And I felt like when I got into an accident, I couldn't move, and I was considered at one point not half of my body wasn't able to move. And I picked up a camera. I've always been a film photographer at a young age. My dad always had these cameras, and he always told me to take as many pictures as you want, and I did. And I technology was growing, and I saw that, and I started photographing. And as I woke up every day on that bed recovering from the hospital, I got a gift from my sister, who brought me a camera. And as much as I used to shake then, I don't as much now from my nerve damage, but I've always felt a connection taking pictures and rehabilitation physically. And that helped me so much. And at that point, when I was recovering, people were saying, don't go out. It took me almost a year to fully recover, to walk, to run. And the people that were most accepting were the LGBTQ people that were providing space in the local music shows. And that's how I kind of got involved in photography more. And I wanted to express that through my legacy of being a photographer, when I put that into my performance as Frankenstein's wife, coming back from a darker place and bringing light from dark listed photography, which is a figure of speech, a place I was in, from the dark into the light, from a vanishing point into perspective, myself, who I identify as, and representing everyone that has supported me. I wanted Lady Shook to be by my side, and Darren, and they were. And the performance was to be innovative by having a cape or a dress over me, and representing my Indigenous folks and Black folks and POC. And it stood out very. I wasn't able to watch the show until it finally aired, and when I did, I the support that came in from so many different folks, it's still coming in, and I'm there as much as I can be. And Bob the drag queen is the best drag mother I've ever had, and Shug and Darren, we're just there to support each other. We have been since then, and I'm really thankful and grateful for the opportunity that HBO has given us. Oh, did he disappear?
I don't think he's here anymore.
Oh no.
I think he'll be back on again.
Oh, okay. Say something, Chance.
Okay, I'm sorry about that. Gosh dang it. Sorry, apologize about that. Thank you for those words. And one thing that you said is, people being picked on and being bullied because of who they are, and that's one reason why I'm so grateful to be on this panel. Think of so many of our relatives who, go through what they go through, and we are told to love each other because we are all our relatives. We all are related. Thank you for that, Nate. Tyson, kind of come back over here. I know you as Vice Chair Johnson, but I also just know you as Tyson. And it's just, to me, you're still that high school kid. You have a huge presence in your community as a tribal leader. Where do you find, through all of this, I mean, you got to balance family and the tribe and, your outreach, where do you find your strength, your healing, and your self-care?
That's a really awesome question. And I think it's something that all of us are going to be probably perfecting for the rest of our lives. But the key word that I'm honing in on is balance. And everything we do, as Native people, and especially Two-Spirit people, we represent, that balance as the people in between, the people that view and see things that no one else can, like we're given those gifts for that purpose. And I've always viewed us and in that realm of balance as being really important to what our role and responsibility is. And being a two-spirited person, from my teachings, I think it's really important to point out that that word and identity, it transcends the limits of sexuality and gender, as the Western folks, kind of understand it. Though it does encompass those two things, I always view it as a spiritual obligation and a sacred role that you're committing to take on for your community, your nation, and ultimately the world. It's a responsibility and obligation as much as it is an identity. So I get, really with our allies and other folks that try to co-opt that term, it becomes really problematic because unless you're tied to that and understand that sacred role and responsibility, I hate to see that word co-opted. It's for Indigenous folks for a reason. And it's because of that, spiritual component and obligation that all of us are taking up when we, use that identity. And so I think where I find strength, especially, is really when I get to do things like this, when I get to see, all the great things and beautiful people that are thriving, despite, colonization and the attempted erasure by the empire. I'm blessed to have the opportunity and a platform to take up spaces. And all of us have been doing that. People like me have been doing that since time immemorial. So I get to kind of help us come back to that. And all of our folks that are taking on that responsibility are doing that too. And so I find a lot of power and pride in that. And it's something that I try to carry with me when I feel my fire dimming a little bit. I said it earlier, but in many of our communities, Two-Spirit folks, gender non-conforming folks, people that didn't really live in that binary as we know it, were important people. They were ambassadors, they were spokespeople, they were healers and more. They dealt with things that no one else could dealt with, because that was their gifts that they were given. And instead of shunning that and excluding that, our communities held it up. We cultivated those gifts. And so we're coming back to that because of things like what the Center of Native American Youth and other organizations. And I have so much respect for artists too. A lot of you that are participating in this are artists and creatives, and I just think that's really powerful, because I view our creatives and artists as the ones that are visioning the future. And so you all that have that gift are visioning the world that we haven't arrived at yet. And so I'm really thankful for those that do that and are doing that work, whether it's through fashion, art, paint, music, whatever. It's just it's amazing. And so I really want to recognize those that are creators and those that are creatives in our community. I think dedicating a lot of my life to this work, also, just acknowledge it hasn't always been easy. I have faced homophobia, I have faced bullying. I've been told in many circles I'm not welcome there, and I've refused to accept that, because I have a rightful place at the table, and no one gets to decide that. And so I think that's why I've kind of been really leaning towards tribal leadership, because if laws and policies and social contracts, all of that are excluding us, then we have to rise up and find that strength to change those things. And that's what I absolutely love doing, making sure that our tribes have non-discrimination statements, that our laws and policies protect all our people and don't exclude some of our people. And that's so important if we want our nations to thrive and become whole again. I really think a lot of us are here because we're meant to help our communities and Indian country become whole. Many things were taken from us, and there's this narrative out there that makes us focus on that, just existing and what's been stolen and what's been lost, when really we get to change that narrative and kind of move forward and create a world, envision a world where we thrive again and we're healthy and whole again, and all of that. And so I get inspiration, just from that. I also have a lot of beautiful nieces and nephews and young people that, I keep around me too, like keeping family close and having that unconditional love and support is something that will always, be my true strength beneath it all and my foundation. I'm really blessed to have that acceptance from my community and my family for the most part. And I've never been able to have otherwise as far as I can remember. So I know that's a blessing and a privilege that I don't take for granted. The other thing too, taking time for healing and self-care. We're always urged, and this, Chance, and everyone on here, we're always encouraged to take on so much. And, and we are amazing. We are divine. We are powerful. Maybe we can take on everything, but it's also okay to set boundaries and to recognize your limits too, because you should be investing in yourself. You should be taking that time to honor yourself and cultivate yourself too, in the ways that you need to. For me, it's simple things like taking the time to enjoy my land and be next to my waters and my ocean. It's having self-care, like when my haircut is shaggy and my nails don't look good, that's a sign I need to take care of myself. I need to do better to myself. I deserve that. And there's so many of our leaders and elders in our community that die so young because they choose not to do that. And we really need to be the cycle that, breaks those bad habits and breaks those cycles that many of our folks are in. And part of that is having the audacity to care about yourself and love yourself and honor yourself by taking time to find balance in your center again. I think the other thing that I want to mention too, while I have the time, is I also feel as Indigenous people have an obligation, to all of our other communities that are struggling. And so I find strength in, seeing what other marginalized folks are doing, other people of color, and really, understanding, what they're working on and their movements are, because I really believe that our liberation and everything that we're working on is bound to others. And until there's equality, for our folks that are struggling in the Black community right now due to police violence, our oceanic people, are seeing their islands being swallowed because of climate change. All those things are connected. And I think we need to also, as Indigenous people, lend our voice and energy and political power and spiritual power to all of our folks that are also in that position as well. And so I always find inspiration and teachings from other communities, and I try to bring that into my own work. And I think when we do that too, when we work, not just in Indian country only, there's just a never-ending source of inspiration and power there. And so I am so blessed to have many teachers and community that I share space with, not only here in Quinault, but all over the Pacific Northwest and our other communities of color. So thank you.
Vice Chair Johnston, man, good words. Thank you for those words. Thank you for the outreach and the insight. Somáh, how does your identity influence your activism, and who is some of your favorite activists that you follow on social media?
All right. I want to first reflect on some of the things everyone else has said. I appreciate every person's vulnerability. It really means a lot to me. And kind of touching on what Nate said about growing up androgynous, I also did, but I also recognize how, for like society, the misogynistic society we live in doesn't accept, they're more likely to accept a female presenting person acting masculine, right, than they are to accept a male presenting person acting feminine, I guess. At least that's my experience. So I feel like, I'm privileged in the way that I am like white passing, and when my hair is long, I'm straight passing, and I kind of have a lot of intersectional identities that I don't necessarily have ever had to suffer for, and I know how lucky I am for that. But because of those identities, that's what motivates me, because I think of those people who are less fortunate than I, who don't have the space to be themselves, who don't have the same opportunities necessarily. When I was 18, I ran for a delegate seat for the Democratic National Convention in North Carolina, and that's kind of how I came out to my mom. I was at dinner with her and I was like, oh, so when I go to the DNC, I'll be representing youth, and I'll be representing Native people, and I'll be representing gay people. And she was like, what? It's like, and I just told her, well, why do we have to come out? Why is that burden put on us as queer people to have to tell people that we're different or whatever? And so from that's kind of what spurred it. And I think, I'm an artist too, like I'm a theater artist and I work in film, and activism is not a line of work that I ever imagined or had a strong desire to do, but I honestly just see no other choice than to do the work as a person who has that privilege to speak up, as a person who, I've gained a small social media platform mostly just because of my mom being elected. But I think it's incredibly important to use any attention I'm getting for those things to direct it towards folks who need to be put in the spotlight, So, yeah, and my queerness is not always at the forefront of my identity. I don't think that me being gay is the most interesting thing about me, but I feel empowered to celebrate that part of myself and live out loud in a way, so that and I was inspired by Nate watching We're Here. It made me cry a lot, because that's so important, seeing people just be their authentic selves even if it's on a screen, out in person, wherever, that is so important, because we never know who's watching and who else we're empowering to do that work. So yeah, my identity, I think, gives me the gift of empathy as well to just reach out to those folks. And what was the other part of the question? Oh yes, there's a lot of folks I follow on social media, but some accounts that I follow off the top of my head, I work for two nonprofits called Seeding Sovereignty and Pueblo Action Alliance. Everyone should go follow them. We're doing really awesome work and giving out some good information. Other folks I follow, a lot of these, I don't know how to pronounce them, like, because I never have to say them out loud, but I'd be happy to type them up and post them as well. Erin Wise is a really good friend of mine. They have taught me so much, and their activism inspires me. I work with them over at Seeding Sovereignty, so I suggest you follow them as well. And a few other pages, Decolonize Myself and Rise Indigenous. I get a lot of good information from those folks as well. So yeah, I'm in a place where I'm also learning and trying to like decolonize my social media feed, so to speak. So I too am on a journey of trying to find good folks to follow, but that's a start. So
wow, good. Well, we'll have to look into them too. Maybe I have to start following them as well. Thank you for your words. We do appreciate that. Nate, moving over here to you real quick. Obviously, COVID-19 has hit Dene country, has hit Navajo Nation. Thoughts and prayers out to all of our relatives out there. Any other place in America, Navajo Nation per capita here. Can you share with us the resiliency and the importance work that you've been doing and in what ways can we get involved in supporting your line of work? I think you're on mute.
Sorry, can you hear me now? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, being that the Navajo Nation is the largest reservation since, the COVID-19, it's been very hard. I've been affected on both sides of my mom and my father's side of the family. I lost cousins to it. And
how old were your cousins?
I had a cousin who I used to be a janitor, and before We're Here happened, I quit my job because I just got tired of it. And my cousin, her name is Chelsea, she's 30 years old, and
That's young.
I used to visit her whenever I would get scared, and she was somebody I was really close to before her time. And I just recently went to my other cousin's funeral on my mom's side of the family, Tara, who was, I believe, 49, and she was diagnosed with breast cancer, and she was fighting it. And hearing about that and doing work, putting myself, risking my life to help the community I thought to myself, every night it started to happen in the beginning, how am I going to help my communities around here? How am I going to be there for not just my family, but my extended family? I have developed close relationships with people that are among our community that are doing great things, and I still want to be involved. When We're Here came out, I launched my website finally, and I started to sell my art, but I felt like that wasn't helping. So I reached out to some of the people that I've been doing work with, such as Arenda Tribe, and Amy. She took me in and she gave me these assignments to do a visual storytelling of all the women, the forefront women on the Navajo Nation. And I would, go to these places that they're doing work at, such as the info shop, and the other places such as the distribution centers where they package food and then they send them out. I would gather these stories of the women and you know, right now my work is just all about helping the community by capturing these visual stories and hopefully doing something. Well, the plan is to tell the story, to get it out on the outlets, to get more aid to come in, because the president's not giving us anything. And right now there's sources that are actually donating. We're getting funding and we're getting PPE. You know, when I'm here at this place and I'm doing like product photography right now, I'm risking my life by driving across back to where I'm from to deliver PPE to my mother's hospital or my uncle's hospital in Fort Defiance on the way home. But I take extra precaution, and I'm doing this not just for my family, for my cousins who would have wanted me to do this. I'm doing this for everybody. I want to make sure that everyone is safe, even if I have to risk my life.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Wow. Well, we're praying for you. We're with you.
And to you know, to if you want to, you know, there's a couple of places you can donate to.
Okay.
You can donate to, let's see, sorry, I had this up. So, you know, how you can support the Navajo Nation right now, you can donate directly to the Navajo and Hopi Families COVID Relief Fund,
Okay.
Arenda Tribe COVID Response, Denahotso Families COVID-19 Relief Fund, the Northern Navajo Relief Fund. There's so many places. I mean, I'll put a link up later on my Instagram on how you can help. And yeah, that's pretty much what I've been up to. I'm so careful about how I'm doing things, and I just want to let everyone know that watching out there that I'm trying my best to help, and to help myself, and to take care of everybody. And even if it's through a camera,
Yeah.
it's working.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's so important, doing it through camera, because hey, this world here, you know, we got people watching from all across the United States. We are going to play our part, and you know, Nate just shared it with us, the ways that we can contact. He'll be able to put that information up. Somehow we'll get all the information up. So thank you for those words, Nate. Sherenté, you're actually part of a Geni, you know, and I know that you actually went out to DC, went to the White House gathering. What was that experience like for you?
It was incredible, and thinking back, that was a few years back. I was actually still in the closet with my tribal community, and I was invited to the first ever national tribal youth gathering with the White House, and I got to meet Michelle Obama, and I think, looking back on that time, so much of what I'm doing now and have always wanted to do was in a sort of catalyst form. As I went there, hiding who I was, and then at that Unity conference, there was actually a panel for Two-Spirit people, and it was the first time they ever had that, a gathering, and I was surrounded by Two-Spirit people telling their stories, and that kind of thing gave me the power and the strength to be myself unabashedly in my own community. And just during this quarantine, my younger brother actually came out to our family and to the world, and he in many ways has been an inspiration to me. Even before he came out, he always was himself, and it's been said in this talk, like, he didn't need to come out because we knew who he was in his heart. And I find solace in knowing that the horrific things that I've been through on the powwow circuit are not going to be things that he will need to be nearly as afraid of. But it's something that we need to continue to keep fighting for, to be seen. Meeting with these political figures, I mean, Indigenous invisibility is the root of almost every issue we are facing right now, because it is not visible in the media or anywhere. As Indigenous people, as a Narragansett person, we are not recognized in our own state, in our own town. And because of that, our neighbors don't know how to treat, our teachers don't know how to treat the brown student with long hair in their class that's being bullied when they try to go to the bathroom. So I look back on that time with great fondness. And I think it really lights that fire moving forward. Still, despite all of the work that I and so many others have done and are doing, I know when I go to a powwow that I am going to be cussed at and nasty things will be said to me. And that isn't okay. And by speaking out, I think that is how we can really create change, to allow people to know what is going on. When I graduated from high school, I was a presidential scholar under the Trump administration. And so I have a medal that has Donald Trump's signature on it.
Oh no.
So yes. So as terrible as it can feel trying to work within colonial systems that are pitted against us, it is exactly those fights that we need to be fighting, and we need to be having these conversations with our tribal governments, with our state governments, with our federal government, and we need to not be silenced, because the issues of one tribal community impact us all. And as it's been said, the issues of other minorities within our nation, in our world, they all come right back to us.
Right. Wow. Good insight. Thank you for sharing that. And you are absolutely correct on how important it is to work together, come together, collaborate together. And, also understand sometimes we have to sit at tables that we don't want to sit at, but we have to sit at those tables to have a presence. So I feel like, having Jemez in your life was really important, and the opportunity to go out to the White House and be a part of that. So, man, I am just so thankful for you, Sherenté and Tyson, Somáh and Nate. You guys this was a great panel. It was a true honor for me to be able to moderate it. I just want to give a special thanks to the Center for Native American Youth at the Aspen Institute. This is our fourth episode. We do appreciate you for all being here with us. And my closing thoughts here, I just want to say is, it is important to be you. Be who you are. Be proud of who you are. And, and always seek support. You'll find support. Sometimes when we're all trying to do something, when we're trying to express who we are, there's going to be more people against you than there are going to be for you. It's up to you to focus on the ones that are for you. So, thank you all. And just, be praying for each and every one of you in your outreaches. and anything that you put your mind to, I know that you'll get it done. And just are a good insight, you know, and anybody out there listening, these words that these young leaders shared, whatever it may be, whatever you have going on, just know that we're with you, you know, and we're here with you. And we like to thank again for the center and for Aspen for, letting the world know that, every day is normal, that we all live, it's normal. It's normal to be who you are, So thank you for that. Thank you guys for tuning in. And don't forget, in a couple weeks, you can go over to Center for Native or CNAY. Get on their Facebook, and we're going to have another episode coming up. And, just check back with us. I'm Chance Rush. It truly is an honor. And I want to thank all of our guests. You guys have a great day. We'll see y'all down the road.
Thank you so much for having me.
Stay safe, everybody.
Be careful, everybody. Take care.
Take care.
Yay.